Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to SuperCoach Edge and another edition of Damo's Team Talk. This time coming out of round 11, and it was an interesting round. But without further ado, let's make this quick, smart, make it snappy. So let's have a look at how we performed in the round that was. So ended up scoring a 2,310 and was slightly above par, as it turned out, in terms of where I was ranked. Ended up rising 168 spots. So we'll take it. It's the old green arrow. So anytime we see that, we absolutely lap that up, even though it's small incremental rises there. So we now sit ranked 9,425th overall, and team value has increased now. It's past the 13 million mark, 63,500. So not too bad there, and we continue on with that. So let's have a look at how our team performed line by line. And first up, we will go through the trades that we did make for those people that missed our iteration of Team Talk last week. So ended up trading out Horne-Francis out of McRae and Horne-Francis. I couldn't keep both, unfortunately, due to buys, but the way it's turned out, I needed to punt Horne-Francis due to the fact that I needed an extra player in the round 12 buy. So ended up punting him for Clark in defence, and used a bit of a cash out on Cleary from the Swans to then jump on the Vicentini train, the Ovaltini, as I like to call him, and the chocolatey goodness for those people who have tried Ovaltini. If you haven't, check it out. I remember back in primary school, we used to get the little Ovaltini tabs, the little lollies from the canteen. Going down a rabbit hole there, but Ovaltini, he was sort of the new cash cow train that I was jumping across to, and ended up banking around about 12k odd or thereabouts between that movement there, and line by line. So ended up in defence. Dane Zorko, 118, was a relatively good match by him, and starting to string together a little bit of form now, which is good to see. Jack Sinclair, a 143, who ended up being the equal top scorer for my team, which was really a welcome sight, because he's been in my team now for 2 weeks, and both weeks he has smashed it and been up there in terms of the top scorers. So past couple of weeks since I brought him in, he's gone 131, 143, and he has increased 43k in total. So really welcome sight there, and got him an absolute bargain, as I'm sure a lot of you out there did as well. Now, Jai Clark, 86 on debut, wasn't the best, considering I kind of brought him in for his, reliability and consistency, just having that really high floor. 86 was actually his second lowest score, as it turned out. But, as we always say, 80s, 90s, if that's a floor score, we'll take it, considering that majority of the games that he has played, he's tonned up, and when he has gone large, he's gone very large with the 146, as he did against the Pies in round 9. So Harry Sheasel, he, however, is the man that disappointed, 63, and the most concerning thing about him was he was actually pushed forward a lot of the time. Didn't really get much mid-rotation either. So I don't know what Clarko is doing here. Is he auditioning to be, the understudy for Bevo in being a complete nonce and making some really strange moves? Maybe. But Harry Sheasel, he just was not thereabouts. I think he ended up getting like 2 CBAs in the last quarter, and that was about it. Wasn't good at all. So the 63 was his lowest, and his past 2 games, he's gone 77 and 63, but the most concerning thing is his role. I don't know what he's experimenting with, and I'm going to guess and say it's temporary. At least I'm hopeful it is. But I imagine a lot of people would be considering trading She's Nuts out because he is on the buy this round. But I'm a little bit more bullish. I am keen to sort of stick with him just in case this role is temporary. As we've seen with Sheasel and the way that Clarko has used him, he's used him in defence, in the middle, and now up forward. I think it's a temporary thing and really didn't contribute too much. Sheasel, if he kicked a bag of goals, you could probably say that maybe it's worth persisting with, but I think this experiment here that Clarko's gone with, I reckon is going to be very temporary, and he will go back to at least maybe rotating through the middle, maybe off halfback, who knows. But I'm a little bit more bullish compared to other people out there that have kind of, rang the alarm bells and want to trade him out. So She's Nuts, come on, mate, and Clarko, pull your head in. Matt Roberts ended up scoring a 90, so very good to see there. He had a highish break even, still lost 14.1k in total, but he is that constant there. His past 4 games, he hasn't turned up, but he's got 82, 72, 84, and 90. So still thereabouts, and he is currently in my D5 position. So for what he's punching out with that average of 95.8, we'll take it. If it was, very, very, I guess, large sort of standard deviation in his scoring and fluctuations, would kind of worry, but it is quite consistent across the board there. And as I said, he's in D5, and that's kind of what we can expect from a player in that position. Zach Reed as well. Now, unfortunately, he actually scored pretty well, an 87 again, but we will have to part ways with the great man. It looks as though he has done a hamstring. We don't know the extent of the hamstring thus far, but of course it will come out in the injury update on Tuesday. And still went up 20.1K, so has increased overall 318.9K to be, I think, the best cash cow all season. So 438.8K, and it allows us to really use that cash to bring in a definitive primo, provided you have a little bit of cash in the bank, which I do. So he is in my sights at the moment. It's kind of worked out. It's a little bit bittersweet because, in a sense, I was looking to upgrade Zach Reed potentially this week anyway, to potentially Lockie Whitfield. And the fact that Reed has gone injured just, kind of makes it easy in that decision, because otherwise I would kind of question holding on to him. His break-even is 99 anyway, so if he ended up playing a full game and scored this score, I would still punt him, but I'd be awfully worried about those people that held Zach Reed, knowing, his ability to score quite well. So we tip the old cap to Zach Reed, and we bid him farewell as he rides off into the distance. So, yeah, he will be a trade out, unfortunately. On the bench, Matt Carroll ended up playing, which was good to see. He scored a 47. Wasn't the best, but, for the type of player that he is, he's a tall defender. He's not going to be scoring these massive scores. So, still went up 1.5K in total, and his break-even is 35 heading into the round 13 game. Of course, Carlton have the bye in round 12. Sardale Hawley. Now, this bloke is being done over by Brad Scott. And, it's no surprise because he is a Scott brother. And both of these coaches just do some incredibly stupid things. I thought he actually offered a fair bit in terms of his, speed and, I guess pace off the wing, which I thought was kind of what was needed at Essendon. But he made way for the debutant Angus Clark, I think it was, ended up kicking 3 goals. So to his credit, did pretty well, but you do feel for Al Hawley. And to make matters worse, apparently he has done a hamstring in the VFL, so could be out for a little while as well. And really, it always happens on the cusp of buys where you have guys that you have on the bench, hopeful that you're going to be able to use them for cover across the buys, and they get injured or dropped. Happens every single year, and looks as though both has happened on this occasion, unfortunately, to Sada El Hawley. Let's move on to the midfielders, and Lachie Neale, equal team high, 143, which we will take with open arms, because remember, only 3 weeks ago, he scored putrid 81 against North Melbourne, but he's since responded 116, 143. Of course, as you might remember, if you tune into our weekly SuperCoach Edge episodes, as of 3 weeks ago, he was the topic of our round remix parody song, and he has responded. Of course, you can thank us for that, because no doubt it is off the back of us giving him a little bit of a rocket up the old anus. Nick Dacos, 107. He kind of turned things around because he ended up having a gazillion disposals in the end against North Melbourne, but wasn't really impactful or effective with them. Ended up having 38 disposals, 6 marks, 4 tackles. So got, I think it was like 25 disposals or something in the last half, it might have been. So, yeah, could have been a lower score than that, but we just hope that Nicky Dacos does turn things around and goes back to his impactful best. Speaking of which, Caleb Sarong, 107, he was on track for a half-decent game. Wasn't to be, but again, look at the scores across the board that he's had. Another ton, but a lowish to mid-100 score. And as we always say, he's very consistent. And, we ride these high floor games knowing that we're going to have eventually a really high ceiling game to come, which, as we know, with Sarong, he can pop off. But he's only really had those, one game really, 142 in round 4 against the Dogs. And aside from that, 117 against the Giants last week. So he needs to string games together in terms of having, more impactful, I think, contributions in a given game. But one guy who did was good old Maxi Holmes. Ended up scoring a 128 and was incredible. Really did everything, pushing up the ground and, drifting back to defense. 128. Just a great game from him. Went up 17.2K, now sits priced at 519.2. He is gettable. He is gettable for those people that are keen, and I do recommend that you kind of consider him, because I think he would be up there in terms of defenders, best averaging defenders. Let me just have a quick squeeze at that. There you go. He's 8th. So he's getting up there, and you've got to kind of, I guess, expect that there will be maybe some games that he cops a little bit of attention tag-wise, but as we saw on the weekend, when he is given that time and space, he can absolutely have incredible games. Adam Chera, another great game from him, 122, has really hit his ceiling scores over the past couple of weeks. 142, 122, has increased 34.8K over the last 2 weeks, and just hold him as long as you can. I know Carlton have the bye this round, but has a break-even of 42 heading into round 13 against the Dons. So ride him for as long as you can, and he should be the least of your worries, really. Ryan Marrick, speaking of worries, scored a 49, which was his lowest score, second lowest score for the season since round 1 when he scored a 33. So 49 isn't going to cut the mustard. Dropped to 16.7 in K for the first time in the negatives, his price point, and he's still made 259.3K. Do we consider potentially moving him on? Maybe, but isn't on the bye this round. So maybe think about punting him when the Eagles have their bye in round 15 if you're going to do that, because as I always say, if you're trading out in this round, you're going to be trading into a player that has a bye coming up. So really just be conscious of that and make sure that if you are doing that, it's not going to scuttle you on that given bye week for the player who has the bye that's coming in. So Ryan Marrick, hopefully he can turn it around. I don't know what the issue was there. I wasn't able to catch the match, but had disposals and whatnot. I know he spent about 10 minutes on the bench at one stage, which was very strange and alarming in a sense. But yeah, he didn't hit the marks, didn't hit the heights of what we're expecting. Levi Ashcroft, speaking of hitting heights, he was incredible. A 95. Kind of kickstarted his cash generation again, I think, because went up 3.5K and his break-even now has gone down to 71. So plays the Dons this coming round, and another guy that you can really hang your hat on in terms of the more reliable rookies. He is definitely one of them. And Lindsay is another guy that's kind of turning into a little bit of a more reliable rookie as well, because he had been sort of stagnating in recent weeks, but went up 20.1K on the weekend, has increased in total 151.2K and scored an 80. So really an incredible game from him. His past 3 weeks, he scored 71, 67, and 80, and has a break-even now of 38 heading into round 12 against the Saints. So we will ride him for as long as we can, but good to see that he's sort of on his way. He's halfway between the 100K and the 150K mark in terms of profit made, which is a big, big tick. On the bench here, it is a wasteland. Unfortunately, Clay Hall didn't play. Huswaite obviously didn't play as well. And Boxall, he was named, and I was awfully worried that he was going to be the sub, and that ended up happening. Scored a 27 and still made 31.9K, believe it or not, in his first sort of price rise there, but has, in effect, scuttled, what we were hoping to be a very nice cash rise first up. So has a break even of 22 heading into the game against the Ds. Hopefully he keeps his spot, because he would be ideal to have on field. But as I always say, when it comes to the bye weeks, you can't rely upon rookies on the bench, because as we saw with Sardale Hawley, he got dropped and he got injured. So either can happen. But let's move on to the rucks. And Tristan Cherry, 126. I think he was on around about 90 odd at three-quarter time. And even at halftime, I think he had a really high score. And for some reason, he stagnated between the second quarter and third quarter. And then in the fourth quarter, he only made about 30 to 40 points, if that. And had a little bit of a, he tripped himself up, I think, because he gave away a few free kicks. But yeah, he was our captaincy option. We were hoping for a much, much higher score considering what he was on at halftime and three-quarter time. But it is what it is. Rowan Marshall, now he was, I think, our lowest scorer across the board. In fact, he was, even including any rookies. Oh, no, sorry. He was the second lowest behind Marriage. So Marshall, 55, just not good enough, especially off the back of that big game last week where he scored that 179. I mean, both of those together, he's averaging, 100 and something, but Yeah, you don't want these peaks and troughs. And this is kind of what I was worried about when getting Marshall is he had these down games in round 4, 5, and 6 when he scored 61, 52, and 65, just out of the blue. And I know he played, I mean, the only thing that gives me a little bit of confidence and, a bit of comfort in a sense is that he played Jared Witts, who is historically the most, I guess, what's the word? He's the biggest cooler when it comes to opposition ruckman. He's the hardest to score against virtually. That's the easiest way to say things. But yeah, Marshall 55. We were hoping for maybe an 80 odd. I was expecting that against Witts, given the hard matchup, but is what it is. Harry Boyd didn't play obviously at R3 on the bench. And in the forward line, we had Bailey Smith, Basilenko, 118. He was our vice captain. Didn't lock that in. And we ended up gaining an extra 8 points by putting the El Capitano on Tristan Cherry. Track, 125, one of his highest scores for the season. He hit his ceiling as he has done in previous games. And another guy with a really high floor and a very nice high ceiling of 120 plus. So nice to see there from good old Track. Now, Chad Warner had a bit of a down one. 84, lost 8.3K, but that's kind of what we come to expect. It's very similar to Track with that highish floor of 80 to 90, and when he pops off very nicely. So we just have to ride the roller coaster there with good old Chad. Now, Isaac Rankin, 87, another guy who started the round very, very slow, has that high floor. These three guys virtually are very similar. High floor, high ceiling when they can hit it, but He's a little bit frustrating, Isaac Rankin, because he really should be scoring more than what he is. But when we look at the raw stats, he is the second best scoring forward at the moment. So you can't really be too displeased about that. Caleb Daniels scored a 97, and I'm glad that I kept hold of him. There were a few people that actually traded him out a week or two ago. His ownership dropped 11%. Dating back to the end of round 9, has scored 97 back-to-back weeks against the Tigs and Collingwood on the weekend. So has the bye, of course, but the way things look at the moment, he may have to be a keeper. I mean, a lot of people are squandering to around about, 15 trades, similar to what I am, and we have to sort of hold on to guys that we might otherwise be keen to upgrade. That's probably part of the reason why I'm persisting with Sheasel, as I spoke about earlier. And Daniel is the 9th best scoring forward at the moment. At the very least, I think he might turn into a nice flex, given his DPP forward mid status. And Elijah Hewitt, now he started the game very, very well and was on track for around about 80. He was on around about 40, I think it was at halftime. Only scored another 17 points or thereabouts, just finished with a score of 57. So dropped 11.8K. He had a break even in the 80s from memory. And yeah, his break even now, however, goes down to 53. So does have a chance to kickstart his cash generation again. Has made us 157K, and we will think about potentially trading him out when he's on his buy. But for now, he just sticks there because warm bodies, end of the day, are the key when it comes to buys, and we can't be too fussy. In the flex, Vicentini, Ovaltini, he made a little bit of bank for me, 43.9K, kind of on par with what SuperCoach Plus was saying that he would score projection-wise. 66, 43.9K, we'll take that. And had a really hard matchup against Luke Jackson. And yeah, still I think in the ruck, did pretty well, 36 hitouts, did a little bit around the ground as well at stoppages, all that sort of stuff. So he is someone that we're hoping can eke out another 60K odd and can generate 100K in profit as sort of that left field cash generator given the lack of quality rookies in recent weeks. On the bench, Jack McRae obviously was there, and it worked out well because I had McRae on field, and I was using him as a loophole with Cooper Simpson from Freo. Given he played first, I had the emergency on him, and if he scored poorly, I would bring Elijah Hewitt off the bench on field in place of McRae. If Cooper Simpson scored well, I would have left things as is, obviously. But as it turned out, Cooper Simpson, poor bloke, went down very, very early on for a score of 0 and ended up putting Elijah Hewitt on field. So it netted me an extra 57 points. So he came in handy there, good old Jack McRae. Hopefully will again, in subsequent rounds. But across the buys, it doesn't really matter because you're always going to have players out in any given line. So for me, that was a little bit of a bonus, but yeah, a real kick in the up the arse, considering that we just brought Cooper Simpson in a couple of weeks ago. He made us 23.2k, has a break even of 14, but I think he's got a dislocated shoulder and not the best injury to have long term. So hopefully it's a relatively minor one. I mean, Blake Acres has come back from that after a week off, but yeah, it just comes down to the severity of it. But yeah, a real sad sight to see, considering he was in some really nice form in his opening 2 games at Freo. Now, that's where we stand. That's how we scored in the round that was. Of course, our attention turns now to what do we do trade-wise. Now, traditionally, when it comes to the first buy round, I'm not a massive fan for it. Now, I spoke about it earlier because any guy that you're trading in for a player that's currently on their buy, the player that you're bringing in is going to have a buy coming up. So you're virtually kind of breaking even in a sense. The only reason I would do it is if you're jumping on a player that has a very, very low break even coming up for the round to come, and you can't afford to wait. So if that's the case, you just need to be wary about the fact that you need to cross-check the bye week that the player has that you're bringing in to make sure that he doesn't put you out further on that given bye week that he has. Because, for example, if you only have 17 players, so you're not placed well in, say it's round, 14, and you're bringing this guy in and he has around 14 bye, that's going to give you 1 player less if you're bringing a bloke in with that bye. So you just really need to have a look. And if you do have SuperCoach Plus, SuperCoach Gold, whatever you want to call it, it is incredible because what you can do is you can show the buys. And for round 12, for example, obviously it shows the blue dots here, but for rounds coming up that have the buy, you can see here guys that are grayed out. So you can really see visually how you're placed over the coming rounds. So it is something that I would recommend doing, especially if you are trading this round. Now, speaking of trades, as I mentioned earlier, Zach Reed, I probably could have held on to him had he not got injured, but, Lockie Whitfield is one guy that I'm looking at, albeit Lockie Whitfield played a very strange role against my mob. He was playing forward, didn't take a kick in for the first time, I think, in seasons. And I don't know what Kingsley was doing. Lockie Ash was taking all the kick-ins virtually, and it's not a really good time because I was looking at getting Whitfield in, and it's a plus that, yes, he dropped further in cash, but I'm a little bit worried about that role. Surely it doesn't persist. I don't know what they were thinking, considering that they threw Toby Green into the middle. They needed someone forward, so they used Whitfield, which reeks of a bit of Leon Cameron type, moves that he did with Whitfield in the past. So it's a little bit concerning, but there aren't really any other guys that I'm keen on as yet. I mean, still obviously keen on Butters and Bont, but these guys need to depreciate further in value, and they're on the buy as well. So we can't consider those guys even if we wanted to. And Whitfield does have a buy that is coming up, and I think it's in round 16. Let me just cross-check that. Yeah, round 16. So let's have a quick look at the buys for round 16. Now, Zach Reed, who I'm trading out for Whitfield, shares the exact same buy as Whitfield. So in terms of impact, I'm not impacted any further than what I currently am. However, you really need to look at, guys that you may look to trade out that have that buy for players that will play that given week. So looking at that round, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players out that round, but I will be looking to potentially move on Levi Ashcroft for that buy round in round 16. So it will give me an extra player. Jack McRae should hopefully be back by then, gives me an extra player as well. So again, just sort of weighing things up and comparing guys that you're missing on that given bye week. So for me, I think that's the move I'm going to make. Let's just have a quick look in terms of options that we do have. So Lockie Whitfield, he dropped 18.3k and has a break even. This is the other thing that we're sort of weighing up. Has a break even of 147. Could drop even more dosh, but is it worth it? He's facing Richmond, and as we know, Richmond are giving up a fair few points, especially to defenders. So we're just hopeful that the move for Whitfield is, I guess, short-term and it doesn't happen again. Albeit as well, he scored an 82, which isn't the worst. And looking at Whitfield on DFS Australia, have a look here. In terms of normally, Whitfield has a kick to handball ratio of anywhere between 1.5 to sometimes 3. Look at this game, for example, here. So the round 5 game, this is sort of the best way to explain it. He had 18 kicks, 6 handballs. So for every handball, he had 3 kicks. So he's kicking 3 times as more than what he's actually handballing. On the weekend, he had a kick to handball ratio of 0.42. 19 handballs to 8 kicks. That's the first time he's had that, such a low kick to handball ratio. Dating back, I'm just scrolling through, dating back to round 1, 2024. And he was playing halfback flank then as well. So it's a really interesting one, a strange one. But it still goes to show that if he's still able to score an 82 with that kick to handball ratio and having a disposal efficiency quite high, 81%, and he's averaging disposal efficiency wise quite high at 80% on the dot. So he's a very, very good user of the footy. That's the same thing that kind of gives him that, really high floor compared to other players as well that I spoke about previously. And players with a high floor is very, very helpful, especially when it comes to your head-to-head league matches. So he's kind of on the horizon for me, but do I do it? I've got money in the bank already. As I said, I've got, 184.4K in the bank already without having to do another trade. One thing I'm mindful of as well is to kind of hold on to a few more trades if I don't need to use them on a given buy round. So as I said, round 12, I don't traditionally like to upgrade or make trades, but if it is forced through injury, we can't get around it. So Lockie Whitfield, if I was to bring him in via this one trade of Zach Reid, it would leave me with 56.8K in the bank. And it means, obviously, I've got another player playing in place of Zach Reid, and that's a good thing. That's a very, very good thing. Other options that I could look at, there's Nasai Wangan and Millera. There is Lockie Ash, but I'm not a massive fan of him compared to Lockie Whitfield. Connor Rosie, I'm keen on, but on the buy. Who else is there? Nick Martin, who had a massive, massive game. I don't know, outside of this big game, if he's going to be a top 6 defender or forward. That's about it, really, in terms of guys that we're kind of targeting that are top tier in defense anyway. So Lockie Whitfield, he is currently the second best scoring defender. We've obviously got Sinclair, who's the best scoring defender, averaging. Dane Zorko, the third best averaging. So do we do that? We could also move Holmes into defense because he's currently in our midfield and maybe look at a midfielder. We could afford Brayshaw with about 1K remaining, but I much prefer to bring in Zach Butters at a lower price point. He's going to drop even more cash when he plays in round 13. So I'm not going to be going for him even if he was available, Zach Butters, this round. There is Zach Merritt coming off a 156. I'm a little bit worried about him because he will be copping tags, I think, over coming rounds. He has games against Brisbane, which I think Jared Berry could potentially tag him. Then we have Carlton, of course, Hewitt could maybe tag him or, at least negate him at stoppages and the centre bounce. And then Geelong, they always use O'Connor. So those 3 games are a little bit worrisome. And yeah, that kind of leads into his bye in round 16. So they've got Freo as well. And then the buy in round 16. So I don't know if I'll go for him as yet. There is Josh Dunkley as well as another one. I just don't know about him being a top liner. And I don't want to overload on Brisbane players in the midfield because I've already got Lockie Neal and Ashcroft. Ashcroft will be an upgrade eventually, but I've also got Zorko in defence, so I don't want to overload on Lions players. Tom Green, I don't mind. Jordan Dawson, I don't think I can put myself through it. Just his peaks and troughs. He's got a very, very high ceiling, but big standard deviation, low floor. I do like Tom Green, as I said, Connor Rosie as well. Matt Rowell, I don't think I could do it to myself. Outside of that, who else do we look at? Isaac Heaney, maybe. Yeah, that's about it. Then it starts to sort of thin out a fair bit. There's no one else that I'd be confident on per se. So I think at this stage, we will wait for the likes of Bont and Butters to depreciate in value before we start to sort of build out our midfield. And, it might be a sort of a smarter thing to go for the value as we've been doing with Sinclair, with Clark in defence. Maybe we just continue that line of trade-ins. So Lockie Whitfield, if we bring him in, we'll go down this route for now. Leaves us, as I said, with 56.8K in the bank. And in terms of guys that I have available for round 12, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, we're not going to count bench players for now, but even if we did, Matt Carroll isn't playing. He's on the bye. Sardale Hawley is injured / not being selected because of Brad Scott being Brad Scott. So we've got 5 in defence. We've got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, including the midfield. 13, including Rowan Marshall. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 players on the dot that are on field. Everyone else, that's even before accounting for anyone on the bench. Now, Cooper Simpson won't play in all likelihood because he's injured, which is annoying because he was going to be our 19th player covering Caleb Daniel in the forward line. McRae, obviously not playing, is injured. Boxall, he's our only hope out of all the players on the bench. So hopefully he can play and hopefully he avoids the vest and he can come on in place of Chera and be our 19th player. I think I'll be interested to see. Let us know as well in the comment section down below how many players you've got playing in round 12. I think round 12 is a little bit of a hassle. Probably not more so compared to, is it round 13 or 14? Yeah, I think both of these rounds might be round 14. Yeah, I don't know if round 12 is traditionally seen as the more troublesome. But round 13 looks pretty troublesome as well. Round 15, not so much. Yeah, round 13 should be fine because it's just St Kilda and Freo on the bye. So it might be round 14 that trips some people up. And then round 16. I wouldn't stress too much about round 16 at the moment because, there will be guys that we're trading out that will have the bye in round 16 to guys that, or primos, that have already had their bye. So as I mentioned, there's Ashcroft, who has the bye in round 16. A lot of people will try and upgrade him that week or even prior to then. And guys on the bench as well that potentially aren't playing as rookies or, rookies that are you can virtually cash out and put on the head of another player to upgrade to a primo. Can't think of anything else that I'm missing. I mean, potentially captains and vice captains. I haven't had a look at it at all as yet. So let me just have a quick squiz at that. Oh, who could we go for? I mean, it's kind of a bit harder now, and this is kind of where the captains and vice captains become a little bit more important because, that can give you the bit of a difference compared to other teams and can kind of make up the difference for if you have bog players out on any given bye round. Who do we go for? Lachie Neale potentially against the Dons. I think traditionally he scores quite well against them. 166 actually, his last game in round 2024, 198 in 2022 and a 109. So he's probably speaks for himself as that vice captain. Who else is there? Nicky Dacos traditionally being tagged by McGuinness. GWS against Richmond. If you have, any players there, do we take the risk on the roller with Whitfield as the captain? I probably wouldn't, but there is Dane Zorko as well against Essendon first up if you wanted to sort of not go for Neale or if you didn't have Neale. Who else is there? Max Holmes against the Eagles is probably a good shout. Last game of the round. And Baz Linker as well, Baz Smith. Do we go for him? Whoop. He's a little bit of a worry as well because he was close to not playing apparently. I think it might have been a calf issue maybe. So hopefully he plays because otherwise we're going to be down a player if Boxall doesn't play. So it is what it is. I think we just have to make do and just don't panic too much. I think that's the main thing, especially in round 12. As I said, guys you're trading into your team will have a bye eventually. So unless it sort of evens out your buys and you're able to accommodate for it, I wouldn't be too worried about that per se. Outside of that, could we go for maybe a Jack Sinclair? Maybe. We might need to be a little bit more adventurous with things this time around. But that's it, ladies and gents. We might leave things there. I think I'm going to look to use the one trade this week and try and hold up the amount of trades that we're making at the moment. And we could potentially try and bring in a rookie. I mean, that's one thing that we haven't looked at. Having a look down here, there is Angus Clark. He's only played the one game, so you can afford to wait for him. Campbell Gray, I think he's played 2 games now, has a negative 52 break even. Maybe you could go for him. This is something that you kind of need to think about. Will this guy keep his spot? I don't know. Could be a nice cash generator though. So this is sort of one guy that I forgot to mention that I'll be thinking long and hard about and probably won't be making a decision on until we see team sheets. But just be conscious of the fact that Richmond do obviously have a bye coming up, which is in round 14. So if you are not well stocked for round 14 and you're bringing in a Campbell Gray, it could actually be to your detriment. So round 14, I could probably accommodate for it. I've only got Roberts, Dacos, and Warner missing that round. So might be something I'll think about, especially if Cooper Simpson is out long term. Campbell Gray as well as a defender forward. So a bit of a handy swing there, especially when it comes to trades and flex. So yeah, it might be one to sort of, if we need to cash out a Simpson or an Al Hawley or someone of that kind, you could potentially do things that way and, swing Al Hawley maybe if you wanted to do that. If you wanted to trade Clay Hall, for example, or a Huswaite, swing Al Hawley from defence into the midfield and trade one of those guys to Campbell Gray to get a little bit more cashola, I think. But hopefully Clay Hall can play this given round. That'll be very, very nice and give us that extra player that we're looking for. But outside of that, Angus Clark will wait on, and yeah, I think there's McAuliffe maybe from Richmond as well, but he's at a higher price point, and yeah, I don't think he's really much use to bring into my team as yet. But that is it, ladies and gents. Thank you as always for tuning in. Really do appreciate your company, viewership, listenership, everything else. Let us know your comments down below, thoughts, how you went for the round, and how you're placed, as I said, in round 12 for the bye. How many players do you have at your disposal, and are you looking to make any trades? And if you are, what are you looking to do? Let us know in the comment section down below. If you are watching us on YouTube, you can hit us up as well on socials. If you are listening to us on our the audio podcast side of things, of course, it is via Twitter, X, SuperCoach_Edge. You can hit myself up at Damo J88 as well. But that's it, ladies and gents. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Really do appreciate your company, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.